Hey everyone, Dan Saavedra here from Merge Your Data, and we've been HubSpot partners for quite a while now. And recently there's been a pricing and licensing change with HubSpot. If you're on existing contracts, it won't affect you for a while. But if you're looking at HubSpot as a solution, you might have come across this and heard some grumblings. And so I've had some really strong initial thoughts about HubSpot's change here, and figured I'd just make a video because things have changed over the past several months, and I think that we can talk a little bit about that, and I can just share my thoughts as someone who's worked in HubSpot for a while and co-sold and stuff like that with the platform. So at first, I'll have like this little presentation. I'm going to dive into the actual pricing and licensing on their website. But at first, I was feeling pretty upset about this, so I got this little meme right here, this little GIF. It really felt like a rug pull in a lot of ways, that things were changing for the worse. HubSpot was becoming something very different than what I started with on the platform. And the truth is that it is. It's very different now. It's been building and growing and shifting pretty significantly. Before, it was really a much simpler platform where you could have one person part-time manage the whole thing. And as they've added on new capabilities to compete with the sales forces of the world and to offer more enterprise functionality, it's not there yet, but they're slowly releasing more and more capabilities that make it enterprise. They've changed their licensing and pricing to fit those new capabilities. And sadly, for some, we see a much higher need for specialists on the platform. We see a much higher need for a full-time person on the platform, especially as your organization grows and uses the enterprise suite. So some of you might already recognize this, but if I can get the thing to switch here, this was me going through the 7 stages of grief. So I was pretty much quickly going through the shock and denial phases here. The change is there. It can't be reversed. And I was stuck in that anger phase with these what seem to be increased prices for everyone, even though that's not the case when we actually break it down. And so now I feel like I'm closer to the testing and acceptance portion of this. Probably more in the testing phase here, the stage, just because in reality they are restructuring for a more enterprise capable tool. But I feel like some of the features don't quite justify those changes just yet, but it does show where the product will be heading very soon. And so there are greener pastures here in the future. I feel like HubSpot is becoming more capable, is becoming a better fit for bigger enterprises, some of which we work with. And it's not all bad news for the smaller businesses. It's not necessarily going to be much more expensive for the smaller organizations, but it will be forcing them into a certain way of using the tool. And so that's good and bad on different levels. But as I said, let's go into the actual pricing here. So if we're on HubSpot's pricing page in an incognito window, so it's not showing our accounts and the numbers in quotes for our actual account. This is the newest model, the new license model, the new pricing and everything like that. And so I think the first thing to point out is that, especially for really, really small businesses who liked getting started on HubSpot, the leaps from one level to the next felt like a lot. And even the smallest level for people who are just getting started and really just want to get their foot in the door with HubSpot seemed to be quite a bit. And so they've changed the model now to be per seat. So a lot of times with small businesses, really small businesses, there's only really one person doing a lot of the CRM type work. And that includes a salesperson. Sometimes you can be, 5 to 10 person organization, have one salesperson full-time or maybe even part-time. And they're really the only one who needs to be actively in the platform. And then if you actually need someone else in there, it's really not too much more expensive to add on another person. And so before, this was more a flat rate with limitations in terms of the entire bundle here for the starter suite. And then where we really start seeing a good difference is here in this professional customer platform bundle. And so recently, HubSpot added in the Content Hub. They separated it out from the Marketing Hub features. So they took some Marketing Hub features, moved them into Content Hub, and then Content Hub got additional features on top of that. And so that was a separate product. And with this whole bundle here, you still get 5 seats and you get a $1,300 a month cost for that full bundle, and then only $50 a month on top of that. And that's way cheaper than what the professional bundles used to be. So this is actually a better deal for small to medium-sized businesses. And really this $50 per month for additional seats isn't not that bad, in my opinion. $50 a head for this level of the tool is not great. I don't know, actually, now that I think about it, because I don't remember the details of the release. I don't know if this is for all hubs here, or if you add a seat and this is a cost per, like it would be $50 for sales, $50 for marketing. I'm not sure. So I would talk to any rep that you're talking to if you're looking to get on a new plan here. But then when I started thinking about it more, I think the biggest changes that feel like a small rug pull, big rug pull that isn't justified yet, but clearly is going to be justified in the future based off of the product releases, would be the Marketing Hub subscriptions and then the Operations Hub subscription. So I'll start with Operations Hub. This is the specialty that our firm works in most of the time. Operations Hub has lots and lots of capabilities, and it used to be a flat fee for professional and for enterprise, but now they're doing this seat model. And so it's not prohibitively expensive to give more people access to Operations Hub, but it's still an added cost and it feels like a negative change. Now, the plus side to this is that it's really forcing people to have better structure around their CRM permissions. As HubSpot has rolled out new CRM user permissions, you're seeing them line that up with the actual licensing and pricing model here. And so this isn't necessarily bad because there are certain things that people can do with Operations Hub that can have mass impact on the data in the platform. And so making it a seat model makes people really think about who's getting access to that, and also kind of forces a quality check with the team, because maybe you're only going to pay for 1 or 2 people to have Ops Hub access, and you have to go to them in order to get stuff approved. And so this is the same on both the pro and enterprise level for Ops Hub. But as we see HubSpot move out or roll out more features, these prices get more justifiable. Before, a lot of the value that we saw with our clients, and this is just our specific use case, was in the custom code workflow actions and then webhooks as well from workflows. That was the big upsell. And enterprise, depending on like what your setup is, it could be useful with data sets, especially, but a lot of people do reporting outside of HubSpot anyway, so this wasn't as necessary. But they've been adding more and more for the enterprise features, so this is getting pretty cool, especially with the advanced data calculations. We're seeing more and more capabilities here. So, but I digress. Marketing was the other one that I saw as a big change in maybe a negative way. You see that it's once again the seat limit. And so this really comes into effect if you're especially working with an external team who's going to be helping out with marketing initiatives, then this can add up pretty quickly. Once again, this is more aligned to the enterprise use case because you're going to have a lot higher usage. And so this seat model bodes a lot better for both parties to think more intentionally about their usage of the platform and their quality in terms of permissions and releases within the platform. And then for HubSpot, it supports their end, obviously, because they're theoretically making more money with the seat model for people who will be using their platform more. And so it's not free to operate that when there's 50,000 users in the tool. So this is a much more aligned pricing model going forward with an enterprise structure. For small business, this feels pretty rough to have to pay for seats now. But it's a trade-off that, in my opinion, makes sense now that I think about it a little bit more. Another thing that I thought was really good about the price change was these seat models for Sales Hub and for Service Hub. Before, there was a minimum, and I don't see a minimum on here. And so I believe they got rid of it, obviously, but this is just per seat now. And so before you had to get, can't remember what Sales Hub Pro was off the top of my head. I think it was around 800, maybe 600 per month. And so if you only had one or two salespeople using those functions, then you're paying for something you're not using. And then same with Enterprise, $150 a month per seat is really not a bad deal for everything you get in Sales Hub Enterprise. And so I think this change to the pricing model is actually really, really beneficial. And then Content Hub here, as I said, the bundles make a lot of sense. This is now viewed as like an additional cost, and I think that it is, and I don't really like this split out still. But if you're bundling everything anyways, then it really turns out to not be too bad of a deal because you get it inside of the other hubs. And so HubSpot keeps releasing more and more features in that Content Hub, so it becomes more useful every day. And so I think here, like the big thing for me was that HubSpot was switching to an enterprise model for licensing and pricing before it was appropriate. But in reality, as they've rolled out new features over the past 3 months, they've been significant enterprise features that justify this change in pricing and licensing. I think that they still have a little bit to go before they're actually a viable enterprise alternative, and that's coming from someone who works with enterprise clients on HubSpot. Just in general, there's some things like Sandbox, for example. There's no staging environment. There's no syncing between a Sandbox to a staging environment back to enterprise, which is a really big deal. Staging, Sandbox to staging to production, which is a really big deal for enterprise. And so that's a huge limitation that just really, for me, makes it not quite the enterprise tool. They've added things in like the CRM backup, which is another big functionality. They're building out the associations capabilities so you have correct relationships between records inside the CRM. So they're getting there, but the licensing model felt like too soon of a change when it was announced. Now that new features are released, it feels like it's just before it's appropriate, but they'll catch up quickly with the actual product. And so the other thing that I think is a consideration is that if you are interested in HubSpot right now, my guess is that it would be worth it to pull the trigger now, because as they add on more of these enterprise features, I don't think we're going to see the same pricing for HubSpot for too long. I think this is going to go up, especially on the enterprise level. To me, as HubSpot tries to expand more into Salesforce's market space, they're going to try to compete in a lot of ways on price upfront. And so this value will start getting more and more expensive as they get more market share and are seen as a more viable competitor. So right now, this is more of like a foot in the door, come use our enterprise tools type thing, lock in your rate. And my guess is that over the next 2 to 3 years, that's going to go up significantly, or minimums are going to be implemented that are much higher than what we currently see. So these were just my thoughts as I grieved with the changes to HubSpot's pricing and licensing model. Hopefully, this helped you understand some of the changes from at least one partner's perspective. There's a lot of different thoughts going around about it, some negative, some positive, some neutral. I found myself in all camps. Just like everything, there's usually pros and cons to change. So I'm Dan Saavedra from Merger Data. If you do have any questions around, especially Operations Hub, since that's our specialty, feel free to reach out to myself or to my team. We'd be happy to answer some questions, show some of the capabilities in HubSpot in terms of all of the automation and connection to other tools that you can do with Operations Hub. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.